Hi, Paul Sackis, Good News Planet. What an honor. Sandra Shaw Homer. Hi, Sandra. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's raining this morning, so when we get up on a day like this, we say, "Welcome to another day in paradise."
Well, Costa Rica, I believe, is where you are located right now. Is that so?
That's right. I have been for 30 years.
Wow, wow, wow. So, are you in a tropical rainforest, would you say?
Well, I'm in the highlands, the central highlands, northern highlands of Costa Rica. So it's not heavy duty rainforest. It's more of a spring-like climate, actually. So we don't get super hot temperatures, and we don't get super cold temperatures either. So it's kind of nice.
What brought you there from Philadelphia?
My that's a good question. My ex-husband and I were we were running a little public relations, marketing communications firm,
Oh,
and as partners in your own business, it's a disaster for your marriage, for your business, for everything. So we burned out, and we decided to try something totally new, a new climate, and a friendlier environment, and so we just happened to run into an honorary consul from Costa Rica. And she explained to us how easy it was to get residency here. So we explored it. We came down and looked around and started selling our house and our business. And within a year and a half, we were ensconced.
okay. All right. Well, it's a wonderful part of the world. Highly acclaimed, I believe, and I've had some involvement actually in Costa Rica with there's an institute, I don't know if it's still there, it was a while ago, the Institute of Peace, um, with a gentleman named Maurice Strong and Stephen Rockefeller, and other people. I've done shows on him, and I interviewed your president, the former president, I guess, Aries.
Um,
Um,
Wait, I just lost you.
I said, in the past I've had I'm involved with the peace movement, the United
Yes, I'm
Nations,
aware of that.
and
Yeah, there you are. Okay, sorry, I lost
and
your
as
face.
and there's an Institute for Peace in Costa Rica. If
It's
it's
called the University for Peace now. It's quite
okay,
an extensive operation. Yeah.
and so I had was introduced to it through a gentleman named Maurice Strong, who was very close with Kofi and Stephen Rockefeller,
Mhm.
um, who was also very involved with that, and some other people, and the president at the time of Costa Rica, I had interviewed at the UN, and I think I can't remember, Aries,
Arias,
Arias.
Arias, Oscar
Okay,
Arias.
and so I have only good vibes here of Costa Rica. Are my vibes correct?
Yes, your vibes are excellent. Oscar Arias was twice president of Costa Rica, and he
Right,
won the Nobel Prize for Peace
right.
because he finally b- brokered the peace agreement in Nicaragua and Nicaragua and Honduras. Um, it was a mess up there in the Northern Triangle, and it's just there were any number of militia groups shooting at each other, and then he managed to get everybody quieted down. It was really quite an accomplishment.
Now you're actually quite your international traveler, and went to University of Pennsylvania and Cornell, and written a few books. And we're going to talk about one of your most recent books, an engaging memoir. So we can learn all about you through now. How do I pronounce this? Evelios Garden.
Evelios Garden, that's correct.
Oh my
Yes.
God, I never say anything right. But okay, tell me about Avelios Garden.
Well, it's a memoir of a naturalist in Costa Rica, because at the time I was making an effort to really learn about the flora and fauna in my backyard. Costa Rica is one of the most biodiverse countries on the planet, so there was plenty to learn about. And Evelio was a longtime friend, and he had helped to build our house, and he wanted to plant an organic garden on our property. So I'm writing a memoir. I'm studying the plants and animals, and Evelio is engaging me daily in this project of his, which turned out to be frustrating. And there were cultural clashes and linguistic clashes. And it was also very funny at times. So I kind of intertwined everything together, my life lessons and what I learned from Evelio, which was very important. He grew up in a single holding, a very simple family farm that was completely self-sustainable. And and so he kind of moved from the 19th century directly into the 21st without experiencing the 20th. So there were some difficulties in communication, to say the least.
Give me a better moment. I'm the good news guy. Share a
There were
nice moment with him.
there were great moments. I mean,
I'm sure.
when he served up his first vegetables from the garden, that was a very special moment. But he had a lot of trials and tribulations. But we were seeing the beginnings of climate change here. So the typical tropical cycles of a rainy season and a dry season just weren't happening the way they used to. And so it was rainy when it was supposed to be windy, and it was windy when it was supposed to be rainy. And he had a very difficult time getting the whole thing started. And then the deer started eating his lettuce. And so he had to, I mean, there was just about any kind of challenge you can think of for an organic garden. But he took it in good stride, I have to say. But I had to keep him at it. He wanted to quit, but I had already picked the title of the book. So,
well, how about you? Did you want to quit writing the book, or you were still happy writing the book, knowing that you were using his involvement within it in some way?
But we didn't lose his involvement. I kept him at it, thank goodness.
Oh.
And yeah, so yeah, it went on for a year, and so uh, we learned a lot from each other. It was a very positive experience, actually.
Well, I love this. I loved it. Actually, I was fortunate enough to grow up with somebody that helped my dad in little old Tarrytown, Louis. And Louis was from the old country of Italy and grew grapes and made some wine downtown where we grew up in downtown Tarrytown by the tracks. And then we moved uptown, dad bought a house or whatever, fancy $25,000 house in those days, and in the Crest. But Louis, he would help my father carry rocks. He was a bovine. He was a machine. And then when my father finished gardening and also a similar kind of wonderful experience from my dad, the shoe man, selling shoes at Little Shoe Store. He'd go down to Louis's house. Louis had the grapes. My dad would take a hit of some wine and he would be drunk like within 3 seconds.
Oh, no.
I'd have to get back up the hills in Tarrytown. So what was the unique thing besides him loving what was it? How did you compare you to Evelio, or didn't you? How did this book work out here?
I'm sorry, how did I compare?
Well, did you compare or did you not compare? How do you fit into this book?
Well, it's a story about my life, first of all.
Right. Okay.
And Evelio is kind of a counterpoint.
Okay.
But yes, there certainly was contrast between the two of us in terms of age, in terms of language, in terms of culture. I learned a lot about the sustainable rural lifestyle of Costa Rica 100 years ago. And I started to think about that in terms of climate change. What are we going to do here? My husband and I planted over 1,000 trees on our property, and they sort of created their own forest. And Evelio was all for doing things organically, and it was all for doing things that were good for the environment. So he was very helpful in that whole process. So now there's a forest growing on the property.
There
8
you
acres
go.
of, yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sandra, tell me something about you. What don't I know about you?
Well, you don't know my age.
I don't know what you look like in video.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
The internet was just so dicey this morning. I figured we better not try it.
That's perfectly fine. So tell
Yeah.
me about you, something unique in there that you think people will say, wow, that's really, really very, very fascinating.
Well, I'm a little bit adventurous. In my previous book, Letters from the Pacific, details a 49-day trip on a cargo ship that I took in 2010. And that was just jumping off a cliff. I had no idea what to expect. But I wanted to get on board a ship, a real working ship, not a passenger liner with 3,000 other people and 24-hour-a-day food and entertainment. That wasn't interesting to me. I wanted to be on the sea. I've always loved the ocean, and the sea for me represents a kind of eternity. It's just incredible. You can sit on the bridge and look out at nothing. It's nothing, but it's everything. It's a wonderful experience. I could do it again.
Did they pay you to go on this cargo ship, or did you have to pay to go on a
I
cargo?
paid. I paid. You know, they accept passengers. Not all
Oh,
freighters, not all freight liners accept passengers, but in this case they did. So yes, I was
what was
paying.
it? What was the cargo on that ship?
Oh my God, there was, there was the captain outlined a whole bunch of stuff for us one day. It was one of the interesting things was a yacht, a multi-million dollar yacht in the middle of the foredeck.
Uh-huh.
It was surrounded by containers, so you couldn't see it. But I began to wonder if it was really mythical. But it turns out that when we landed in Tauranga, New Zealand, they did offload it, and so it was a real ship.
Oh,
And then there was also a one-off 1951 Rolls Royce with a snakeskin upholstery that belonged to some sheik. I don't know what he planned to do with it in New Zealand, but that's yeah, that was part of the cargo.
tell me
And we
about
had cases that we had containers full of champagne, and I mean, you just name it, everything goes that way.
interesting. Very, very. I mean, who knew? Who knew? So now, that was your past book, and now tell me a little more about this book. Is there any additional characters in this book that you had experiences in your life that you share in the book?
Yes, including an ex-husband who was an alcoholic, and that took a lot of um, energy out of me, just trying to be helpful to him. And with an alcoholic, you really can't do anything unless he wants to do it. Um, so finally, I just had to leave. I had tried so many times and failed so many times to be helpful to him that my self-esteem was on the floor. I mean, how can you feel good about yourself when you're failing all the time? So I decided at the age of almost 50 to go my own way. And we eventually divorced, and later he committed suicide, which was but not
Oh,
6 years later. So I didn't have to feel responsible a little bit. Um, yeah, it was a very sad moment, and there's also some sexual abuse on the part of my father. It was covert initially, but after my first marriage failed, it became overt, and just really destroyed my sense of myself um, as a good person. Nothing happened, but he told me he had always been physically attracted to me, and that just blew me away.
yeah, that's a powerful comment for someone to say. The ramifications of that comment can go many different ways and things.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
so that's a toughie, toughie. How about some good news? Because I can't unfortunately say that that's good news.
Well, I'm the good news is here in Costa Rica that I'm surrounded by the natural world, that I have um, found my peace of mind here, and uh, I have a spiritual connection to nature that it fills me with gratitude, and I think that's a very important um, way to end your life. I mean, I'm old enough now to start thinking about ending my life, and so I'm grateful for uh, everything all the blessings that I have here. That it's really helped to heal me, truthfully.
You're a young girl. What are you talking about? What's going on here? Is this
Uh,
you? Is
I'm
this
seven.
picture you?
Yes.
Or is that picture 20 years ago? What's the
No,
deal?
no, no. That was recent.
Oh, so you're a young girl. What are you talking? You're
Thank you,
midlife.
Paul. Thank you, Paul. But it's not true.
You're in midlife. You don't know if what I'm saying is true or not true, and you don't know what's going to be. Maybe you do, but the point is that you're in midlife. I just would like to suggest something because I'll then have to say that I'm 72. I'll be 72 June 9th. Okay, and so I'm just a little bit above midlife. because see, we do a lot of health and wellness interviews. Okay, there's something called DNA, and there's something called stem cells, and there's something called freezing, and there's a lot of science that is happening within our lifetime. DNA was discovered that is making scientific discoveries happen. I do interviews with very wise people that are running these big pharma companies, spending a lot of money on research, and they're learning about how to keep us living life longer. So I'm going for 120. So the thought is, I'm sharing this with you only to hopefully inspire you, because even though as you get older, I can't deny that this hurts and that hurts. That's a pain. And you woke up the next day, wow, wait a second, my knee didn't hurt me when I went to bed. All right. But the point is, carry on.
Well, I'm a couple of years older than you are, Paul, just a couple. And yeah, you reach a point where the physical things start to happen and you start deteriorating. And, you start noticing that you've got more lines and more liver spots on your hands and arms. And you're not as strong as you used to be. I still go to water aerobics twice a week, which is incredibly helpful, and it helps to keep me in good shape. So it's important to me to not be frail. I don't want to be frail. So I'm enjoying my life. So if it goes on for a while longer, I'll be happy.
A lot longer.
I don't see the need for it to go on to 120. However, I'd rather not, given climate change. I don't want to see everything that's going to happen.
Why are you that down? Do you remember? I don't know if you remember, but Mother Earth had one or two, I think, ice ages. You think that was a fairly concerning climate change?
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. We're living in a very unusual set of circumstances climate-wise here. The 10,000 years that people, Homo sapiens as we know it, have been cultivating the land and living in towns and so on, are an extremely rare event in Earth's history, and we can't expect it to go on forever.
10,000. Aren't we here longer than 10,000 years?
Oh yeah, we are as a race, but that we started settling, agriculture started, and we started developing communities of more than just a family grouping, and people had the luxury of being able to explore their creativity and their artisanship. And once they had a steady source of food through their agriculture, a whole bunch of other talents could come to the fore.
I mean, the caveman, he had this thing, a bat. He used it like a golf club.
What?
We're fine. We're going to get through the environmental concerns, and everything is going to be fine. And that's my thinking here, and I'm sticking to it. It's a better thought for me.
Yes, of course, and that's very reassuring to hear you say that, Paul. I appreciate it.
It seems like, see, I want to take, like, if it's a water concern, we were involved with the International Day of Water, helped create that at the UN. My buddy Phil Sowers. And we're very involved with nature. I helped start the nature series on PBS, and a lot of environmental, part of the Clearwater, Pete Seeger's groups and things and so on, environmentally minded. We're going to figure out how to take some of that water, out of the oceans. And my buddy went around the sea for 1,152 days in the sailboat. And we're going to put it into the land, and we're going to purify it, and we're going to give it to little children who don't have a glass of fresh, clean water. We're going to work this out.
I think it's certainly possible. I mean, the technologies are being developed even as we speak. So, yeah, I think there's a way that the human race can survive on the planet, even with the planet's changing. So,
I like it, Sandra. All righty. Any other thought you'd like to share with regard to your book?
Well, I think that the one of the takeaways from the book, I think the most important one is that if we're not close to nature, if we don't feel a part of nature, we're not going to feel any impulse to save it, to take care of it. And that's really what I learned in working on this book was uh, how close I am to the natural world and how important that is for me personally. But also, I think it's important for everybody to tune in to what's around them and begin to feel some urgency about how we go forward.
Beautiful. Let me ask you one last question at this point, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much. I ask people, well, it started because we've been involved with the Peace Day and this Good News thing, International Day of Peace, actually, on September 21st. But I ask people, what is peace to them, or what is love to them, or what is faith to them, what is good news to them? You can have your choice if you'd like to
Well,
share something.
one of the nice things about Costa Rica is that it dissolved its army back in 1948.
Right.
Yeah, so all the money that was going into military suddenly went into public education and public health care, and so the country is, I think, quite advanced in that sense. Um,
Okay.
it's a peaceful place. People want to get along with each other. It's I love the values here and feel much more part of this country and culture than I do anymore in the United States. So this is happy news for me.
I love it. I love it. All right, Sandra, you're cool. Well, thank you. Actually, we might be starting a Good News Costa Rica section of our broadcast, which we have country represented here on Good News. So we'll reach out again to see if you want to share some of Costa Rica's beauty and the things that you love about it, or know others that might want to put that content on this Good News Costa Rica. So it's
That
all
sounds
good.
that sounds great. I'd love it. Thanks,
Oh,
Paul.
wow, great. All right, Sandra, and you went through my good friends Brian and Grace and those people. They spoke so highly of you, and I can see why.
Thank you.
You take
All
care.
right. It's been
Thanks.
great talking with you. You
Nice
too.
speaking with you. All righty. Bye bye.
Bye bye.